Hey guys, welcome back to Better C Sharp. This time we're going to be talking about exceptions. So exceptions are a way to handle program states that are invalid. So what does that mean? That means like when you have something in your program that goes wrong and it's kind of something that's out of your control usually, you have a way to kind of catch that and react to it. Um, so exceptions should not be used as a way to handle normal program logic. They should really only be used to handle things that are kind of outside of your control. And so if something is inside of your control and you know that what you're going to do is going to throw an exception ahead of time, like just don't do it. Um, so they should not be like if you have a branch of code that like more than half the time throws an exception, maybe you should rethink how you're structuring that code, right? Um, and then you should only catch exceptions if you intend to do something about it. And that doing something is usually like you can either log something out, you might have to do something to close out the method or program gracefully. You might catch so that you can continue on with the program. Like if you're processing many records and one of them, you know, you end up with a divide by zero or something like that, and you're like, well, I don't want this to stop processing for all my records. If I'm 100,000 records in and there's only 2,000 left to go, like I want to keep going until I'm done. You should at least log it. At the very least, you should be logging. So you should never have an empty try catch. That is basically like grounds for being smacked on the wrist with a ruler. Don't do that. Especially with the exception class, right? So like the .NET exception class, if you catch that and you have an empty catch statement, you're saying like, I don't care what happens in the try. I'm never going to react to it. And that's bad. So like if you know that, for instance, you have an exception that sometimes pops up and there's nothing you can really do about it, but maybe retry or something like that, you shouldn't catch exception. You should catch the specific type of exception that you were expecting. So like if you have a database call and your database availability is not 100% and you know that sometimes it's going to fail to connect, then and you want to do some retry logic, then you can do that. But don't catch exception. Catch like, DB connect exception or something like that. Don't catch the generic exception unless like you are going to do something about it. Save that for like a last resort. And that's because you make other exceptions hidden. So like what if, you ended up publishing out some code and in your connection logic you change something in the connection string or something, and now every time it tries to connect it throws some like parsing exception, right? Like your exception catching that, like if you caught a normal just flat exception, then you're not going to know what happened if that catch block is empty. So don't have empty catch blocks, and if you have to have empty catch blocks, don't do it with the generic exception. Like do it with a specific type. So with that in mind, let's talk about why exceptions were invented. So this is some C code that's probably terrible. I'm not like the greatest C programmer. I know a little bit, but not that much. Um, Especially not code that looks like this. But anyway, so in C you would have like a file and then you could try and open it, but if it didn't open, you wouldn't get an exception, you would get back null, right? And then like if that happened, you just wanted to just go to the end here, right? But then if you did open it and you were like trying to look in through, let's say, the first line and find out, how many seats and doors this line had on it, if we were looking at a line that represented a vehicle, and like it had a seat count and a door count with a space between, and they were 4 integers, is what this says. And you didn't get back both of them, then like maybe that's grounds for what we would call an exception, right? But in C there weren't any, so you had to do something like fclose your file and do any kind of cleanup, right? Or have a go-to that points to what you would do in an exceptional case, right? So And then maybe down a little bit later, you want to know what's your, doors per seat. And if your seats are 0, you can't do that. So you still have to go and close the file. Anyway, like you end up with these go-tos and things that kind of break the control flow of the program. And not only that, even like having these go-tos, they don't let you really, at least this one doesn't let you skip through the call stack. So let's talk about that for a second. If you have, let's go out here, main in program.cs. If you had a program like this, and let's say that you're calling get vehicles there on line 15, and down in get vehicles, it opens up a file, and then once it's, done that, it passes that file to a method, and that method tries to parse out some stuff. So you've got this call chain, right, where main calls get vehicles, calls open file, or calls, parse vehicles, calls open file, calls whatever, right? If something on the very bottom goes wrong and you have a catch at the very top, you can skip the call stack and go back to the very top. And that's not something you can normally do in control flow, right? So this is like kind of a special exit to get back out here to like let you take care of stuff at the program level. So that's another thing you can do with exceptions that is, I don't know if that's it's probably possible in C. I just don't know enough C to be useful. So with that said, let's take a look at some exceptions. So the first rule of try and catch is that you need to think about what you're going to do in the event that you catch something, right? So if you're just going to try and catch something and you don't know what you're going to do, you're going to end up with an empty catch, and that's a no-no. But if you do know what you need to do, and often that is either clean up from your method, like if you opened up a file without a using for whatever reason and you caught an exception while reading it, you probably want to dispose of that or something like that. Cleaning up stuff, that's one reason to catch. Another reason is like if you want to continue down your workflow, like we talked about earlier, if you had a bunch of records and you're on record 599 out of 600 and something went wrong, you probably don't want to throw all that work away. You probably want to like just catch that error and continue, right? And log it out, right? So you can do something about it later. So that's kind of what you should be thinking of when you're catching things. Another thing is at the main level, there's usually try catch at the main level, because if you want to handle an exception that you don't expect, it's going to be at the main level, right? Because you don't know where else to try if not at the main level. So a lot of times you'll have try catch at the main level so that you can do some logging. And that's like that, if something catches there, like something's gone terribly wrong. So that's usually the base exception class, and like you're logging it out, right? But if you have more specific exceptions that you can catch, like let's look at get offer here, right? No, not that. Let's go to the implementation, which should be in here. I guess it's not going to open. Let's go in the random offer provider. So let's say we've got this offer count, right? And we're like, hey, we're going to talk about two situations. Like the first one is, if offer count, then we'll increment it, we'll pre-increment it, is greater than or equal to 2, then let's throw a new exception, right? Throw new exception. Or like, can't, we'll say out of offers. Okay, and then that's one thing. So before we do this though, let's go ahead and let's run this program before we modify it. So it's from a previous attempt at this video. So if we run this right now, we're going to get, or we should get, 3 vehicles that come out and what their prices are and whatnot. So we got a tank, a car, and a truck. They've got their properties and whether or not they should be sold, right? So that's kind of our base program there. But now if we wanted to say there's like, you can only get 2 offers, right? And we go in here and we try and run this again, then what we're going to end up with is an exception. And this tells us what is going on, but like if this were at a deeper level, this wouldn't be very useful. And so another thing too is like, we might want to do some cleanup instead of just not catching this at all. So let's go back to here and we will put a try catch in here. So right now we have this catch, right? And so we can say, hey, let's just console.system.console.writeLine, and we'll just do ex.message, right? We have system, we do, okay. And so if we do this, now we're gonna say, like, we haven't stopped processing because we're catching it now, but we're out of offers. And so in this situation, we probably do want to stop processing if we're out of offers, right? So we might want to do something like break. But then let's say maybe not every time we run out, not every time we throw an exception, we're out of offers. Let's say that maybe something can go wrong when you're getting a single offer, right? So if we go back in here and we say something like, let's get rid of this again. And we'll say if offer is less than minimum or offer is greater than maximum, right? Then we want to throw an exception. So, and then we need to be able to do this. So let's just say times 0.5, or we'll say 2.0, sorry. And my logic backwards there. I guess it's an integer, okay. So now, what we end up with here is like something like this. We are now like, sorry, we should not have the break there. We might get an offer that's out of range and we might not. So the first one is out of range, and we want to continue after that, and that's fine. But what happens if we have both types, right? Like, what if we have both types of exception, right? So if we're like, hey, this can run out of offers, but also it can go out of range. Our current setup in our main program doesn't really allow for that. So, like, we're out of offers here, but maybe we don't want to continue processing when you're out of offers. So let's go back over here to main and say break, right? But wait, if we do this, then we're going to be breaking even if it's just the single offer that's messed up, right? So this is where you start getting into exception classes. So we might want something like a, let's go do it over here. Instead of throwing a generic exception here, we might be like out of offers exception, right? And then we might want to make this class. So you have public class out of offers exception, right? And that inherits from exception. And so to get at the message property of it, you want to basically pass in a constructor argument. So if you go and look at exception, we have these three constructors right here. And that's really our only way to get at the message and the inner exception. Because if you look down here, inner exception and message, where'd it go? Yeah, they're both read only. They only have a getter. And so if we want to pass something in, we actually have to do an inner constructor. So what that looks like is public out of offers exception, right? And then you call base and you do something like out of offers. So that would be how you would structure this exception. And so now if we go back over here, we can actually catch the out of offers. Out of offers exception. Yep. Okay. And so now what's going to happen though is we're not catching our other exception. So we have to also add a catch for that, right? And so if we catch an out of offers exception, we do want to break, but any other exception, we might not want to. So system.console.writeLine, and we'll just do ex.message again. So let's try and run that. Okay, so we ran out of offers. Let's see if we can get one to hit on the first try here. It shouldn't take too long. All right, so we're gonna have to just make it happen. So times 5, right? All right, and so our offer was out of range, and then we ran out of offers, and so now we're like catching this differently. So, but we probably also want to have a custom exception type for this too, because this is a specific thing, right? Like this is a specific thing that can happen. So we might have something like offer out of range exception, right? And then if we go back over here, we could do public class offer out of range exception. And so something like this, you might want to have something like, you might want to have like a public, say, what are they? They're ints maximum and a public int minimum. And then public decimal offer, right? Get rid of that. And then we have to make those constructors again, right? So we might do something like public offer out of range exception, and we'll take in, we'll do the offer first. Offer int max, we'll do int min, int max, and we'll say base, and we'll say the offer is not in the range of, we'll say min to max. And then down here we can set up our maximum and minimum. So we have that. And then in here we just have to throw it. So new offer out of range exception. We want our minimum, our offer, minimum, and then our maximum. All right, and then if we go back, we are catching that correctly. And then, you know, we don't want to break on this one, but if something else goes wrong, we can probably catch that as well. I'm not going to right now. Let's go ahead and see what this gives us. Okay, so we have, you know, whatever that was is not in the range of 1,000 to 30,000. So if you look up here, in here we got 1,000 to 30,000. So that's kind of how exceptions work and how you can make your own exception types, and how you can override what's going on. And having these properties here is actually super useful when you're debugging. So if we go and debug this, let's say we want to put a breakpoint there. We need a vimspector. Give me 1 second, I'll make one. All right, we have our vimspector JSON here. I'm going to go ahead and start debugging this. We'll continue down to our offer. So we go in here to get our offer, and we're saying if our offer count is greater than 2, it's not. It's currently 0, you can see on the left there. But our offer is way over our minimum, or maximum, and under our minimum, well, over our maximum. It's true. So now we go in here, we get our message, and we set up our minimum and maximum. Okay, and then we throw it, and now we're in the catch over here, and we can actually go over here and look at our EX. And we can see our minimum, maximum, and the current offer. So this is why this is super helpful for debugging. And then you can actually see our string here as well. So pretty cool. So I think that just about covers it for exceptions. We can keep stepping through this. The next one, we should get our offers out of range exception. And now we see our message here. So if we look at EX, our message is out of offers, which is true. And then we're going to break. And then we're getting out of there. So that is that's how exceptions work and how you can work with them. Like I said, try and keep empty catches out of your workflow, and I think that'll be a big step towards having better practices with try catch and exceptions. If there's anything you guys think I missed, let me know down in the comments and we can talk about it. And if you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.